Hello there, Seamus.
Oh, hi, Piers.
Oh,
How's it
hi.
going?
Fancy meeting you here.
I know. Crazy. Cup
Wow.
of tea in hand.
Yeah.
Some
Two
mood
two
lighting.
mugs of tea, two boys in a room,
Bit of crack, possibly.
about to talk some shit.
Possibly.
Speaking of, what is it we're going to be talking about?
Well, today we're going to be talking about what we're going to be talking about.
What we're going to be talking about? That's what we're talking about?
Probably, well, seeing as we're talking about it, could be what we're talking about.
Are we going to talk about why we're talking about it?
No,
Perhaps
just,
how?
just what we're talking
Perhaps
about.
how?
Maybe the root of what we're talking about.
Ah, okay. So, what you're saying is we're talking about the nature of discussion.
We could be,
It could be
if we
indeed.
were discussing such
And how it
topics.
flows together. Well, myself and yourself, we've had a lot of discussions before.
Yeah, so we just really wanted to, like, capture it on audio, and then it got us to thinking, like, well, what do we talk about? What's the root of what we talk about? And I don't know. We tried to break it down for people to listen to, listen to our conversations and actually find them interesting. Which I'm sure we don't even know if that's the case or not.
We'll find out soon.
We're just trying to actually document our thoughts then, and if someone happens to listen, that might be good. But like, why do we even find them interesting to talk about? There's usually lots of factors, like, well, obviously our personal interests come into play, like whether we like politics or religion or sports or something like that. But also, like, we're offering each other something as we talk. So whenever I talk to Pierce, or Pierce talks to me, we offer a little tidbit of information to each other. Something that gets the person thinking, and something that they can use.
Well, yeah, I think one of the things that does make conversation so interesting is when neither side knows entirely where the conversation is going, and also neither side knows 100% about whichever topic they're talking about. Because otherwise, you're just kind of one person is relaying information to another one, and that's it. It's like you're reading out of a textbook or something. You're just like, it's better when two people are trying to figure out something together, maybe crack a problem, or even just kind of trying to come to some kind of conclusion on something.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, like if that's why, like, there's much philosophy around it. It's like, so why should you argue or talk to someone in the room who has the same opinion of you? Like, you should definitely, even if there's a disparity in intelligence, in viewpoint, in culture, in belief systems and structure, even in language, to try and talk to them, because probably the person who's most different than you has the most to offer. Like, in conversation, obviously me and Pierce are the exact same person. I'm a little
a
taller.
few, a few differences. A few
Yeah,
differences.
I'm tall. Yeah.
It's a bit younger too.
What?
A little bit less experienced.
I just have that youthful
A
look
little bit
on the
less,
world.
a little bit less mature, you know.
You've got the nihilism going for you, like,
Man, I don't know. I think it's post nihilism at this stage.
really.
You know.
And I'm just a reckless optimist, like,
Yeah, something like that.
just sucking in the sunbeams like a big slug, like. Just
Wow. Yeah.
Do you like that? Yeah.
That's a good comment on the nature of conversation you have there, Seamus.
Well, I'd be more of a leech, I suppose, than not a slug. So
Currently leeching now, anyway.
what, leeching from the conversation?
A little bit.
Well, I've derailed it for sure.
I
Anyway.
mean, nothing new there. But yeah, no. So, I suppose there's a lot to unpack with or how conversations work, how to have a good conversation. Just letting it flow is one of the main ones. Kind of like, I mean, I tried to arrest it there, but really, just letting it flow. I think if you try to control where a conversation is going, or if you know in your head where a conversation is going, it's not really a conversation, right?
Yeah, exactly, and it's not even just like letting it flow. Like, so letting it flow would be like the surface thing, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the reasons behind letting it flow, like, why inherently does it flow? Like, why does water flow down a hill? Obviously, gravity, whatever. But like, a conversation flows for numerous different reasons. So say there's offering information that someone's interested in, that would continue the flow. But also, even if there's a difference, the difference might let it flow because you're interested in rectifying the other person's opinion. So obviously you don't agree on something to someone all the time. So you're like, hey, listen, you listen to me right now, because I'm going to put you in your place because you're wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's like a combative element to it, almost like a competitive element.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way it flows. Like, very few, like, I don't know, oh, did you see what happened there? Yeah, I saw what happened there. Okay.
End of story.
Don't move on.
Yeah.
Like, or even actually stories are a good example as well, because stories are something inherently that the other person hasn't heard, and if the other person has heard the story, well, there's no point in them hearing it again unless someone's going to offer something new to it.
And also, I mean, you raise a good point there. There's a reason why we would say somebody's telling a story instead of somebody's having a conversation with somebody, right? Because it's one person is guiding the entire thing. There's no interaction really, unless you're just saying, oh yeah, oh really, oh yeah. Like, there's no transfer of information to the other party. It's just like a one way highway, basically.
Yeah.
on my road.
Even like why stories are interesting is like a nice little topic. Like, that's why so many people like bluff, or so many people find it hard to tell stories, right? Because it's not just linear. Like, it's not just like, oh, this happened, full stop. You know, there has to be a little bit of punch. Like a nice bit of clickbait at the start. You're like, you never guess what happened here. Oh my god, look at me. And then you go into it, like, and then you say, oh well, so this happened, and then this happened. If you're not offering any kind of interesting like turns in your story or interesting conversation styles, then it won't happen. I think that's the Irish people are really good at telling stories like that, just because we've such deviances in our vocal tones and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's just in the culture as well. You basically, it's such a big thing telling your kids stories when you're growing up. Your parents telling your kids stories, or just like listening to stories from your older siblings, or your older cousins or whatever, or just like even from the community around. So I know, especially in the countryside, like stories is a huge thing.
You're from the countryside.
Oh, I might be actually, yeah. But yeah, stories are a huge thing. Myself and my cousins, if we weren't just playing the Sega Mega Drive when we were growing up, like there was always stories. We used to make up stories to each other,
Yeah.
make up horror stories or whatever, tell them to each other, try to scare each other as best we could.
Well, I think the biggest horror story is living in the countryside.
Oh man, I mean Kilkenny's a nice spot. I will say Waterford, don't go there. Kilkenny, lovely spot.
Yeah, yeah, nice little few swans around the place, nice bit of wildlife, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think stories and conversation is an art form that's been like enriched in our society. Like, it's nice to have that. Like, I think maybe some people argue it's like dying out these days when you can just get like.
Well, that's good because they're adding to the conversation there, aren't they as well? They're creating
by-
more stories
by
by
saying
arguing.
it's
Yeah,
dying,
and they're creating
yeah.
more conversation. They're creating more debate. Good.
Well,
Argue more about it.
I don't know, because so that is adding a story, adding a new depth, a discussion, because you can argue against that, but like also it's just killing lots of different stories. It's like, I wonder which is more important as well, like experience or storytelling, right? Because you can almost gain a better experience from like what actually happened than being there. Just if someone tells a really
If
good
someone
story.
regales it properly, so if somebody like Seamus Heaney regales you a tale, like it can be a lot better
And
than.
that guy could talk about how he put like chapstick on himself, and everybody would be like, "Oh, slow down there now."
I mean, his talk about how much he loved whiskey that's some of the best poetry I've ever heard.
Yeah,
He was literally just talking off the cuff about how much he fucking loved whiskey.
I think, yeah, but that's really what it comes back down to, like the enthrallment.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like if he's able to do that, like that's almost better. No, it's not almost better than drinking whiskey, but it's almost better than like someone going. Oh, it definitely is like someone going. Oh yeah, I drank. Oh, you drank this last night. Da. If someone's like, and the drop as it swirled into the glass. As he does, like
Yeah.
drip, drip, drip.
The way
Like,
the way he speaks as well, like his accent, his voice really adds to it. That's a good point though that you made there. It like how good a conversation is doesn't necessarily rely on the content at all, right? So obviously, good content. That's one way to make a conversation better, is having interesting content to talk about, having something just like something that both parties are interested in, or something that's topical, or something that has great depth. But just like it's not like necessarily a key component of a good conversation.
Absolutely. But like sometimes I find myself like you'd be telling a story because you get so excited about it, and it's happened, and it's good, it's really interesting or whatever. But then you'll have realised that you've weighted it wrongly, and you've put all the emphasis at the start, and it's just it hasn't really, it's not there, like, and you're like, oh yeah, and then everything, yeah, because you got them all excited up, but there's no big punch at the end, and it's just really disappointing.
Or you've told it wrong. If you failed, so especially if it's something that you experienced yourself, if you tell it wrong and you fail to emphasize how you felt at the time, what your headspace was at the time, and how it all seemed to you at the time, if you just say the events, sometimes it won't be funny, or it won't be interesting at all.
Yeah.
So you have a story, and in the context itself it's funny, so you were there, through your eyes it was hilarious, but then just objectively it's not funny.
But does that have to be funny to be a good story?
No, not necessarily, but I'm just saying, using that as an example.
Yeah, even if someone's telling you a sad thing that you should empathize with, I think storytelling applies there too, because even though so a lot of the onus is put on the person who's listening in sad circumstances, but I don't think that should be the case either. So so if you're telling a funny story, all the onus is on you to make it funny. But if you're telling a sad story, or something that's happened to you that you want them to be concerned about, they should just automatically be concerned most of the time, is what most people think. But really, you have to be a good storyteller to tell it too, because as you said, People are telling it through their own eyes and their own experiences. So if they don't have a good perspective on their own sadness or their own anger or whatever, then it really can't convince the other person. So the other person can't be empathetic towards that.
Yeah, even if even if they lack the correct words to express exactly how they felt, I think that's a huge thing in conversation. And actually, having a good conversation is if you have the vocabulary at your disposal to very articulately and accurately represent what you felt at any one time. So I think if you have less of a vocabulary and the person you're talking to is less of a vocabulary, it's much harder to express the exact feeling. It's the difference between saying I
Yeah.
was sad or like I was in mourning.
Yeah, or
Completely
it's
different.
somber.
Yeah, somber,
Or it's melancholy.
depressed, whatever. It's much like just the vocabulary. It's incredibly important to a conversation because otherwise there's no color. You can't really add color without. You can't paint an image with
Yeah.
just basic brushes.
Absolutely. Well, so like, there's a couple of things to take into consideration there. There's first, obviously, as you said, the language. So like, if you lack that, you can't do it, right? But also, so if you say, oh, Pierce, I'm sad, right? So what I've done there is like, I could be feeling any number of sadnesses, like from the ones we discussed. Sad because I bumped my toe, or sad because my grandmother died, something like that, right? But so I have that in my head, right? But you can only process it in whatever way, in the one word, sad.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you take it and you put your memories of sadness on and your interpretations of it from like society, from TV, from everything, and then you take that and whatever. Even if I say, oh, I'm sad because I dropped all my food and I can't eat it, like the sadness won't be the same because you don't have my recollection,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
memories,
yeah.
my built up back. I know it's a pretty populist opinion or whatever, but that's honestly true as well.
Yeah. Whereas if I was to say if I really didn't like somebody, I could say I dislike this person too. In which case, dislike is such a broad range of
Yeah,
things. Or I could say I have contempt for this person, and that's a much more specific
Well,
feeling.
so this goes back to it because this is the main thing, right? So the storytelling is literally to narrow it down. So, and your language and the use of it is meant to be so pragmatic. You can say, "Oh, I dislike this person," or you can offer a reason why you dislike this person.
Yeah.
Like, well, okay, well they did this so and so to me, and then the other person can be like, okay, well, if someone did that to me, then I probably wouldn't be too enthused by it either. Like, I wouldn't be happy, and then they can get a thing. But if you
And the more detail you add, the clearer picture they would get of what emotion they would have in that situation, and the easier it is to empathize.
Exactly,
Right,
but you
yeah,
also
of
want
course,
to keep it as concise as possible. The pragmatism of the language to make it like that's why the words like like contempt, as you said, like
Yeah.
that's why that is so useful, because otherwise, like you can say it all sideways. You can say like, oh, this, that, either, but they can lose track of what you're saying, so on and so forth. You'd be like, oh well, obviously this is just based on Pierce's nihilistic view on the world. he really just doesn't like anybody, and so on and so forth. But like if you really narrow it down and do this stuff like that,
Specify the reasons. Yeah.
it's almost sometimes you have to convince people to change their opinion or their outlook, not just on a thing or maybe on a person, like before they can even accept your story in the same lens you do. So like us as fundamentally different people, like me, very happy, very kind of thing. Like not that you're very content. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But that's
don't worry about.
That's an exact point.
He's happy.
That's a good point. That's a really good word for it, though. I'm very content. It's not like I'm overjoyed at the world or anything. I'm just I'm okay with the way it is. It's fine,
You just accepted everything. That's the way it is. But I constantly look for.
Yeah, but that's an excellent the example of how you've used the perfect word to describe exactly.
Yeah, I suppose. So then, like, we would have different ways of looking at it. So I can be like, "Oh, Pierce, I'm so excited I found this new thing," and you're like, "All right, well, it's just a new thing. Like, I see new things every day, and I'm just like,
but if you've from talking to you, I know how you see the world, and so I'm able to see how that would excite you. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose like that the whole analytics of thought, I suppose, can be really implemented in everything, like from historical figures to see motivations of this, that, or the other, like psychopaths, everything. Well, not psychopaths, they just don't have thought. Like they're just machines or whatever. Like trying to deal with the world the best they can. Hopefully, not killing too many people. But like if you really want to understand why someone did that, well, firstly you have to look at the motive, and then you have to look at the effect of what they did, and then you can piece together the thought processes from that in between, like. I don't know. And yeah, it could be very useful, you know, be like, why did such historical figure do what they did, or why did this friend do that in this situation? Because so often you're left thinking like, oh, why did they do it? Like, what was actually going through their head? And if you manage to deconstruct it well enough, like through the storytelling mechanism, but for yourself, then you could get
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah,
Well, that's an interesting point. That's slightly away from the original point, but I think it's an interesting one we could hit on. Is just the nature of thought. You know, what is thinking? Is it really just as a lot of AI researchers would say, artificial intelligence researchers would say, it seems like as far as they can see, it's just information processing, and it's just more and more complex information processing, right? But it's funny how that works. It's funny how when you're trying to understand somebody else's thought processes, you really what you're trying to understand is kind of how thought works there.
yeah,
You know, how did they come to this conclusion?
exactly.
Which things resulted? I guess it could just be information processing, just very
So
complex if
yeah,
you
I
think
don't
about
know,
it.
like so I have a couple of things to say on that. Like, so obviously there's, I think, different types of intelligence. Well, some people are just incredibly socially intelligent, regardless of whether they have high IQ or like are good in tests or whatever. Like, they can be incredible. They read people very well, understand motives very well, um, and then yeah, so like, so then they can just perfectly do it. You know what I mean? Like, but for your point about AI and like it's just information processing, I'm not sure as well, because I think like AI, if the more and more you give it, the more it's going to deviate from a person so much. Like, you know what I mean?
But
So
deviate
like I don't
from human, you mean,
from
like,
yeah,
yeah,
human
yeah,
person, like not a robot
yeah, yeah,
person,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
like
Or
yeah,
just like the
actually
generic term person, like human, yeah.
exactly, like some people like skills develop almost because of your deficits as well. So if you just keep ramming hard drive and RAM into this thing, and it's able to think at speeds
Light speed,
past
yeah,
humans,
yeah, yeah.
then it's never gonna adopt some of the like qualities that humans have, because humans have adopted certain qualities because of their deficiencies, you know.
Hmm.
So like it would be like, well, I don't even have to read this person, you know what I mean? I could try and understand their thought, but it just doesn't even come into my mind. It doesn't, like as a computer, it doesn't really affect me. All my own do is to compute to do that. Why would they possibly try and understand that when it's below them, you know? Whereas like emotions and stuff for us
There's
is
actually
is
biological reasons for emotions
yeah,
existing, yeah, yeah. There's
exactly.
practical
And
reasons for them existing.
some of them are deficiencies, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
some of them are to help us get by, but like evolution doesn't always help us, you know. It just ensures that genes head on to the next generation. So not necessarily. I don't think thought is just the implication of just more computing power, just like they do, because
Well,
say for instance like your own beliefs, like so if you can, yeah, if a computer could just think and think and think, like, is there a difference between belief there? Because there's so many things to believe, or would they just have an objective truth? Is the question, you know? But no. So if someone could believe in God for whatever reason they did or didn't, or like had a favorite TV show, that would that would really affect their life, you know. But a computer doesn't. Like a computer wouldn't. Why would it believe in watching that or whatever? It would understand it. It would have watched it in like seconds and understand all the other
Consumes
things.
all
But
the information.
it wouldn't have affected the computer's personality.
Well, that's an interesting point, actually. Like, so thought, uh, our thoughts probably work the way they do because of the methods we have for interacting with the world. So makes sense, right? So we've got sight, we've got hearing, taste, smell, touch, right? So how an intelligence thinks would be largely dependent on how it interacts with the world. So, for instance, a if you gave a some kind of artificial intelligence, like the only way it could interact with the world was through sight or something like that, could detect light, right?
Yeah.
It would, if that was the only way it could interact with the world, it could only receive information through light. Its thoughts might be quite different to a human's. It might have, say, I don't even know if you could apply IQ to it, but it might have like a higher capacity for for consuming information and then
Yeah.
processing it and coming to a decision on this information. But it might think in entirely different patterns, entirely different ways. Its thoughts might appear in its head.
Yeah.
It's equivalent of a head
Yeah,
differently because say it can't dexterily mechanically touch something. It can't feel.
Yeah.
It can't touch. Yeah, I never thought
In
of
that
before.
case, it would have like philosophical musings about why it's light out or whatever, because that's all I can do. Maybe like, like the world. It would be like, the cave analogy.
But it would never.
It would
Yeah.
be like oh yeah, well it's light out, so this happens, this whatever, and it could process all of the things in the world. Like if I'm assuming it could do lots of different other things, and it could split the spectrum of light into infrared and X-rays and gamma rays, and it could like even have the idiosyncrasies between like I don't know, the intensities and stuff like that. It'd be like, oh, everything. It could process it so well and understand it. But I suppose that's like you're saying it thinks differently, but also like why would it transmit its thoughts? Like,
Yeah, why
you know,
would
so
it?
like
What's the point?
well, we're transmitting each other's thoughts to like give us a further understanding of it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what would the benefit of it transmitting its thoughts?
This is another thing. I think in order for something to be intelligent, or maybe intelligence is the wrong word, it's for something to be conscious, it has to be able to manipulate the world around it in some way, right? So it has not just manipulate, it has to be able to change the world around it in some way. Because if it can't change the world around it, what's the point of it even thinking? What's the point of it even being aware of itself if it can't change the state itself it's in?
I suppose.
You know what I mean? Like,
But I suppose maybe it doesn't have to. You know that maybe that's like
okay,
an
yes.
evolutionary fault of ours to have a body and to have like something that we need to. You know what I mean? If we could
Yeah, yeah.
transcend that kind of stuff, then maybe that's what the perfect life would be. That would be what a computer
But
has.
do you think you would be conscious, right? So if you're not interacting in any way with the world, if you're just there, so you're some ephemeral cloud floating in space, but you're not able to interact with the world or anything. You know, you might be intelligent, but would you actually be consciously aware? You know, if you can't change anything around you, would you be consciously aware of what's around you? Because it has no effect on your thought patterns, right? Because you can't change it.
No, that's not true. So if I, yeah, no, it's so not true because like I can't affect the way I can only see visual light. I can't affect the way.
No. Yeah, but you can block the light from your eyes.
Okay, I
You see what I mean?
see your point now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can change the way you receive the information.
Mm.
So for
Okay,
instance,
so I can
my
change
phone
the
is in
way-
front of me
yeah,
here,
yeah.
right? And I can reach out and touch my phone, and now I'm changing the way I'm receiving the information from the phone.
Yeah, I suppose though it's like you know when something happens to you, and you know it's really got you angered. Like you know you're so angry that happened, and you can take yourself from that situation. You can go around the corner. You can start flicking through your phone, and half an hour later you're still angry. You know, you've changed your situation in that point. You know, like you've changed what's happened.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you did not interact consciously with that? Like you are interacting consciously by thinking and letting it affect you, just like they can. I don't know. Even though you could change it,
You're still changing your state though. You know what I mean? Like you're still moving. You're changing the area you're in and stuff like that.
But my point is, even if you stayed there, you know, even if you
Oh,
had
yeah, if
left,
you didn't move,
even
yeah.
if you didn't move, that could still anger you. Your emotions still hit you.
But you've had this whole life of moving around and stuff.
Okay,
You know,
that's true.
I think my point is, would consciousness, even if it is supremely intelligent, would consciousness arise if it can't manipulate the world? I'm not sure it would.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe, but I don't even know what way it would like the minimum.
I mean,
Like, it-
we're far out here. Like
Like
you know?
what do you
Yeah,
give
yeah.
it a little umbrella and then that manipulates the world? Like what is the minimum like
Well,
that can manipulate
it strikes me that like, if you go back to the origins of life, so you know little single cellular organisms then go
Little
to
boys.
multicellular organisms. Like they didn't think, but they like manipulation of the world and manipulation of the environment around you came before thought came, right?
Okay.
So I think that suggests that maybe the ability to manipulate the world might be a precursor to thought.
Mm.
Now, of course, it's different because we can just straight up build, say, in 40 years' time, we could just build a robot that can think.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like that old saying, what reason does a square box have to think if it has no way to interact with anything, no drive, you know? That's another thing. You probably have to program drives into something in order to make it intelligence.
That's interesting. I suppose. Well, yeah, I think you might be right in that case actually, because if it can't do anything, then it will never have the motive to do something. But as soon as
Yeah.
it does, it will. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So then it couldn't really think independently. It could definitely. No, I'd say it could think maybe. It could think about why it's trapped.
But it doesn't even know it's trapped because
But
it's never experienced anything
if
outside
it can
it.
observe though.
Oh, okay, well that's different because it's interacting with the world.
So yeah, well, it has to interact to get more intelligent
Yeah,
anyway.
right, yeah.
Surely, like, it depends on what way you want it to get more intelligent. If you just want it to get more mathematically intelligent, you're going to give it harder and harder sums, and that's interacting with the world that
Yeah,
way. But
yeah,
if you
yeah.
want it to become like a human, you're going to have to give it a lot of human stimuli. So then it would inherently understand by like watching our TV shows and like watching humans that it would be like, well, this is the way they do, and obviously I can't do anything about it. I'm just trapped, but I'm still trapped.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's really interesting, and the motive thing, like the motive thing is a really separate topic altogether. You know, like why do humans have motives? And
I think it goes back to our genes, man.
yeah,
Like I mean, I've said this before, but I had a really existential moment one day. I think I was just walking down walking to college or something like that. I looked around myself and I was thinking kind of along these lines of thought. I was thinking, okay, so we exist because our genes want to reproduce, right?
yeah,
Then I looked around me and I was like, Jesus Christ! So if we only exist because our genes want to reproduce, then everything around us exists just because our genes want to reproduce. Like all
Yeah.
of civilization, all of life, everything that's ever been constructed, the motive that's driven it all is like self-replication of the genes.
yeah.
Which is mad to think. If you just go outside and look around and just think, wow, the whole reason this exists is because like not just my genes, but genes generally are just naturally inclined. It's just part of their function.
And why do
to,
birds build their nest?
yeah. It's to reproduce, or it's replicate and reproduce. I'd even saying reproduce is wrong because
yeah, it's the whole
reproduction
factors,
reproduction
yeah.
is just a method of transferring genes.
Yeah. But like it's the whole process. It's like, okay, what do we need to reproduce successfully to get our genes on? Or we need food, right?
Food, resources.
So then you build lots of stuff to give you food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, okay, well, so on and so forth. And that's why the society would have built. So like we need structures. Obviously, we're going to be safer from predators. We're going to be able to pass our genes on longer. You know, if we have houses to protect us from all this weather and the predators and whatever. That's why people moved into caves firstly. And then that's why like we started to farm because it was an easier source of food, and then that's much better for us to survive on. And so then we survived longer, and like, oh, it's cool enough. Maybe I can look after my kids' as well, and then so on and so forth. And then maybe that's where the AI comes in. Maybe it's like, oh, our self-preservation,
The next thing, yeah.
implanting our consciousness into different beings, I suppose, and then having a different form of consciousness.
Yeah, well, there you go. Maybe
Transcend our bodily urges. Do we even need to have motives in the future? Then?
Yeah, that's the thing. Well,
Progress,
maybe
is that
if you
enough
were
of it?
to make an AI, you would have to give it something like genes, like basically program in motives, in order for it to think and interact.
Jeez,
with the
we
world,
better
right?
not give computers the thing for reproduction because that will just be Skynet,
game
and that will be like Terminator.
Over. They're just like, oh,
Wait, we
when
need
you're-
to reproduce too? Okay, here, like Samsung microwave, here we go. Let me just turn you into killing machines so we can get rid of all these humans that are wasting our
they're just
resources
consuming
right
resources.
now.
Yeah, we could use them as resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Like humans have good
Humans are in the way.
material. Yeah.
But it's even like that just the other kind of that funny theory where it's like, oh, you program your AI and you say, okay, your main objective is to make sure humans are safe. Well, what does it do? It just locks us all in boxes and just sticks feeding tubes into us and like makes us unconscious so we don't move. And it's like, okay, there you go, you're safe now.
Yeah.
You're alive, you're alive.
Yeah.
But you're not able to do anything. You're just stuck in this box, being kept alive by a machine.
Yeah, they wouldn't understand.
So I guess also, yeah, to have a really truly thinking being, you have to have obviously one central motive, but then like kind of understanding of how to manipulate your environment in order to achieve that motive. Or like it's the ability to learn how to manipulate your environment in order to achieve that motive.
Hopefully it doesn't deviate from the motive. Just
I don't think it will. I think the scary part is if we make some super god AI is that it will just stick to the motive. I think that's the scariest part, right?
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's like it could just okay, right? AI, your motive or your objective that we've programmed into you is to make people happy, right? It's to make humans happy, right? It just pumps us full of drugs. It just figures out okay, what makes
Just gives us VR headsets
Oh, man,
to
no,
like watch movies and just
yeah, or
whatever,
even it
like-
just figures out okay, what creates human happiness? Dopamine creates human happiness. I'm just gonna pump every human on earth full of dopamine. Just gonna keep pumping them full of dopamine. That's it. That's us. It's made us happy. It's achieved. Achieving its objective. But yeah, I think that's scarier. I think the machine going off the rails is actually probably a safer bet.
Machine gun off the rails.
Machine going off the rails.
Oh right, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, going off the rails. Machine going off the rails. What?
I was like, what are you?
Fuck are you
what
talking
are you
about?
talking
Jesus
about?
Christ!
Yeah, Jesus.
Get your head out of that gutter.
I don't know. Maybe if I had like an assistant AI here, they'd be like,
It just put you back on track.
He said, machine going off the rails, not machine going off the rails. Stop being an idiot. And I'd be like, oh, thanks AI.
I'm saying it in real time too. It would actually.
Yeah,
it wouldn't even
no,
say it to you. It would just change
I
your
would
brain.
just
You'd
think
change your
it, yeah.
thoughts. Yeah.
I wouldn't even process that way. I think the first thing that will implement into like our lives is like the major like biotechnology will obviously be like amputations and stuff like that, the limbs and stuff that would be hyper realistic. But then like we'll try and upgrade ourselves with the technology. Like first, I think it will be sense of hearing. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that'll be the first one because eyes are just too complex. Your taste, like, why would you want super taste? Like, you just burn every time you touch anything. Like, oh no, that onion is way too spicy, or whatever. Like, or like that chili, like whatever. That cake is way too sweet. But like your hearing, like hearing just drops off so badly for humans. So it'd be definitely one of the first things, and then we'd incrementally just
Mm.
increase it in society. There's a guy who thinks, I don't know what he thinks that he can cure dying. He's in California somewhere, Silicon Valley, and he thinks the people that are alive today that are in these experiments will live for at least like 700 years more.
Oh, I've seen that actually. It's because I can't remember
He
the
says
name
there's
of it.
symptoms to dying. He says that, and
Yeah.
if he's slowly going to remove each and every one, so then like by the next time the upgrade happens for like this thing, they'd be like, oh, grand, they topped that up.
Well, if you think about it, there's no fundamental physical law that dictates that we should die, right? Until entropy just destroys the entire universe eventually.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think
there's nothing that says biological life forms must come to an end at X point or Y point,
No.
depending on their physiology. You know, like you presume, like you just die because your cells get worse and worse at copying the other cells. You just degrade over time. You know,
Yeah.
or you get hit by a fucking truck. But like, but like, there's no reason that you have to die if you're not affected by outside things, or if you can rectify problems caused by outside things.
Yeah.
You know, there's
For
no
sure.
There's no
But-
reason for your body to degrade.
So that's the thing. Like, what will the psychological implications be of that? Like, if I could live to 1,000, I'm not even sure I'd like want to do that. You know, like it'd be cool.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be if you're very at one with yourself, which I'm sure you'd have to be if you live to 1,000, because you see everybody else around you dying. But like our human minds.
Aren't made for that.
No, absolutely not. Like we can't even conceive like global warming on a generation basis because it's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect, and then it keeps going on. But if you live for 1,000 years, you noticeably see the changes. You know, people can tell us that this has changed, that has changed, but unless you see it, and it would just corrupt your mind. I think you'd have to take into account like, okay, well, the plasticity of the mind, like how you have the ability to learn, like. But that drops off after you're like 25 slowly until you die. But if you extend your life, what can extend your brain?
Presumably, you could upgrade your brain as well. You know,
Yeah,
you add more hard drive space in there, a bit of RAM, bit of
Yeah.
processing power, just shove it inside your head there.
Yeah, just add in the physics elective there. Just got the upgrade,
just
I think.
Download the module on quantum mechanics into your brain.
Oh, look, now I'm good at art for some reason. There we go.
Download the Einstein module.
But yeah, I think just get round, and we just become the computers that wouldn't have to think.
It would be interesting to see when people finally choose to die, though, right? Like if you had the choice.
Yeah, why
if you're,
would
like,
they?
live for 1,000 years?
Would you do it, Luke Skywalker, and just become like
Just
at peace with everything?
Just vibrate and disappear. Spoilers, by the way, guys.
Well, if you haven't seen it by now, like
I mean, yeah, hurry up, Jesus
But
Christ.
or you just do the Hunter S. Thompson thing, be like, listen, I'm 69 now, can't take it anymore. I've had a good life.
Gone.
Yeah. And then just get shot out of a firework by Johnny Depp. But like, yeah, honestly, I think it would have huge implications on mental health.
Well, there's another thing you said there that I would like to go back to, which I thought was interesting. You said you were talking about how we fail at long term planning.
Yeah.
Right. I actually think this is the only solid argument I've ever heard against the current form of Western democracy.
Okay.
Is that our politicians today, and just the way we have the political system set up, obviously it allows us to eject the politicians like pretty easily. It's not that hard to get rid of a president or a in any Western country, it's not that hard to get rid.
Yeah.
Also leads to it's a very, at least a very short-sighted political arena and just kind of political life, because if you think about it, all of our politicians are just trying to achieve short-term objectives in order to remain in power. Now I'm not saying they might not believe in those.
I want a 20-year dictatorship.
Yeah, right.
I want one person to decide everything for a long
20
time.
years.
Yeah.
But you see what I'm saying? It's like so even somebody say who's quite principled like Bernie Sanders, he probably really does believe. He does really believe
Absolutely,
all the stuff he says. But
he's gonna take that to the grave, man.
yeah,
She's in the grave now.
pretty soon. Like but he's still going to just because of the nature of the political game, he's going to go for the objectives that he knows he can get the most votes for, even if he agrees with them. Just because they're he needs to stay in power and also implement in order to implement his ideas.
It's where it is absolute self preservation.
Whereas,
That's
yeah,
why, like, even if in House of Cards, when
yeah, Kevin,
yeah,
Frank,
Frank Underwood, he's like, I'm not going to run for a term. I'm just going to focus on this bill, and everybody's like, oh, fine,
yeah, yeah,
And it's in real life too. Like, if say like current president of America Trump like does say like I want to run for another term,
hmm
it starts ridiculously early, like for next, what is it, 2 years before they start like
yeah.
putting their
It'll be
names in or
starting.
something like
It'll be
that,
starting probably at the end of this year.
which is crazy.
Yeah,
Like if Trump's campaigning, like obviously, like, well, I'm not sure how everybody feels about it, but like if a president was campaigning, like they couldn't complete their objectives because they have to concentrate so
there's
much
no way.
time on
Yeah.
canvassing and speeches. Vote me in because I can finish my term objectives. It's
Or I
like,
can actually do what I told I do the first time around.
yeah, exactly. Like, no, obviously not. We're not we're not promoting dictatorships here. We're just highlighting
No,
the
no.
problems. But it is true. It's weird.
Well, yeah, it's that
You
old.
could either have it decentralized or completely centralized. That's the only way you could do it. You could have
Yeah.
a government with like specific objectives that they all have to work towards. Forget about the individual basis. Or you could have it completely centralized and be like, okay, well, these are my objectives. I will do them, so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
yeah.
But I don't know.
Obviously, you have to keep balances of power as well, and so democracy, as I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure what Churchill said, like it was the basically the best of a bad lot, So
Yeah.
like it's not a great political system, but it's better than anything else we tried. Because one of the pros of a monarchy, if it's no, see, this is where the cons of
Are
monarchy
you a
comes in.
monarchist?
It has to be a benevolent monarch, right? It has to be a benevolent monarch, but if you had a monarch who really cared about his family, and say his family were inheriting
Yeah,
the country or whatever, he's going to be setting long term goals because his son or daughter or whatever is going to inherit the country, and he will want to have the country in a better state than it was beforehand, before he got it,
True.
before he or she got it, I should say.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that obviously
Or that comes with loads of problems as well. Being
It's
like,
one pro.
I'm entitled to this, so therefore I don't even have to work for it.
Yeah.
These people who I'm ruling over, they're gonna have to take it one way or the other. I'm just gonna be a not a benevolent ruler then. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
I'm gonna be tyrannical just because I can. And
you can
that's
see
it, I'm
that
fine.
throughout history.
So that's why
yeah,
both
yeah.
people in happened. You know.
Like Rome is an excellent example of that. So you have a few good emperors, just a few. The imperial Rome is a good example of that. You have a few good emperors. I'm not saying they were good people, but they were good at ruling. Like
good at
Augustus,
absolutely murdering countries.
Yeah, just putting down rebellions and stuff, but also just maintaining order and like maintaining peace and smooth transition of power.
Yeah.
Augustus was good at that, for instance. But then 2 generations later, you've got Caligula and Nero, who are just like these absolute worthless cretins. Just
Nero, I'm just gonna
play the lyre as Rome burns around him. Yeah, it's just
burn Catholics and
because he feels like it's his right or whatever. So that's one pro of a monarchy, but obviously history is borne out that the cons far outweigh the pros in that particular case.
Absolutely. Friendly reminder, we were talking about AI there 5 minutes ago.
Before that, we were talking about thought processes, and before that, we were talking about the nature of conversation.
That descended pretty quickly.
I mean,
That's really
I feel like this is the way, if we're talking about the nature of podcasts, I think this is the way this podcast is going to go a lot. It's going to start off with one interesting topic, and then we'll just kind of...
Yeah, well, I think it's good to have a little bit of conversation, as we said. Podcast is a little conversation.
A conversation isn't a conversation.
I wonder
if you just stay on one topic.
What does someone want out of a podcast? When you listen to something like, what do you actually want out of it? It's probably maybe to learn something. Like, maybe to learn something.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Take a little bit. Obviously, you want to be entertained. And just pass the time as well, I suppose.
Not even learning facts though necessarily. You might just want to learn
different
perspectives. Saying in the start, different perspectives, or how people talk, how people interact with each other in conversations, that kind of thing. It might necessarily just be facts.
Yeah, and we don't know what we're doing.
No, we've fucking clue.
We've absolutely no idea.
We're sitting here in an echoey room, 2 mugs of tea,
a
dodgy laptop that just shuts off if you hit the screen too easily.
Yeah, and just some cheap recording equipment. Looks pretty good though, eh?
It's not bad. Sounds pretty good too, man.
So, well, listen, that'll be for future generations to decide.
I know, I'm deciding now. Sounds pretty good.
Alright, it's decided.
Sounds pretty good.
Sounds pretty good. But yeah, we just, I suppose, just wing it and just see where it goes.
It seems to be how we're doing it so far.
It seems to be working out too well.
Yeah. If it ain't broke,
don't fix it. Hey, listen, Pierce, at the end of the day,
it's night.
Hey, listen, if you were sick,
you wouldn't be well.
Alright, well, I think that's a perfect time to wrap that up, right? And I don't know, if you're listening to this, God bless you. Thank you. You're actually a martyr. And I suppose we'll see you soon, right?
Yeah, I mean, I might see you soon, James. I don't know who else you're talking to here. I might see you soon.
Oh yeah, we're talking to ourselves. I forgot about that. I went to a prison first of all. So,
So
all right.
that's a sign of an egotist. I think we'll use this part to sign off.
All right. See you now.
See you, boy.